Well, I assume since I'm going last, all your questions have been answered. So it's after all the years of forecasted deficits, it's been a very pleasant change to look at surpluses. So in this case, where the projections are not quite as rosy as they were 3 months ago, it's gives us all, I think, should give us all pause in terms of our plans. I know I'm going to go back and rework my intended budget, and I'm very glad I waited till this forecast. We need to be concerned about, particularly the 2018-19, the next biennium, because even the reduction of 42% in the projected surplus for that biennium from what it was 3 months ago assumes a reduced rate of growth, state and federal, but assumes that there's still positive growth occurring. When I was out in Washington last weekend, we heard from numerous economists that they didn't think there was a very high likelihood of a recession this year, but they thought there was a very, one of them you said 100%, which is pretty definitive for an economist, a recession calendar 2018. Now, as somebody once pointed out, the nation's economists have predicted 12 of the last 5 recessions. So, that's not a definitive word, but it's just a reminder that we need to protect the fiscal integrity that we've worked very hard to achieve over the last few years. And so spending, particularly that'll have the tails in the next biennium that would ramp up significantly, is something we need to be extremely careful about. It also means that a combination of big tax cut and shifting hundreds of millions of dollars from the general fund into transportation would put us in a very precarious position if there is a downturn in the next couple of years. And I'm going to insist that not be allowed to happen. So I'm going to have to review the budget I'm developing, which I'll present March 15th for this year, and particularly for the biennium following. I'm cognizant that we need to take a very careful look at this situation and recognize that our economic growth, while it continues to be robust, is affected by the national economy. I think Mr. Franz and his team made it very clear that we're, as we always are, dependent on what's happening in the national economy and in our state in particular, with the low agriculture prices, low iron ore prices, and the strong dollar limiting our exports. So we did not have the kind of growth in the last quarter, and they're projecting for this calendar year that we did 3 months ago. So there's a lot of questions.
Just to clarify, sorry.
I'm saying I have an old friend back there
Just to clarify what you said about the auto parts tax. Are you saying that is dead now because of this, or simply that we need to look more skeptical?
Well, it's $500 million a year, and it's ongoing. So that's that's $5 billion over the decade. I mean, I think it's I'm not going to rule anything out at this point, but that's a big hole in the general fund.
Good afternoon, Governor. Earlier there was a statement that we have a debt capacity of $968 million, and they were wondering how we're going to reach the $1.4 billion for the proposed bonding bill.
Well, again, it's a matter of priorities. There's been some talk of putting cash into the bonding bill, which is one-time spending, which therefore has no tail, and that might be one way to look at what is really a more comfortable situation in terms of what we have left, the $900 million for this biennium, and the $1.2 billion for the following biennium. So that's one approach to it. But everything will have to be reviewed based on this forecast. I still maintain we got over $3 billion of requests, and most of them very good ones, and seriously to urgently needed. And interest rates remain low. Those dollars go into building trades jobs, good paying jobs. So there are a lot of economic reasons to continue with the strong bonding bill.
Governor, how might this change in the forecast bolster some one-time spending like broadband?
Well, I think it's going to give more weight to those that are one-time expenditures because of just that fact that, without a tail, that's a big advantage over some of them. We're talking about ongoing spending, for example, human services, where we have St. Peter's, staffing improvements there, where we've been talking with a bipartisan group of legislators we're down in that area. That's 1 year we're proposing for fiscal 17, and then the next biennium is for 2 years. So anything that we do of that nature that's going to be ongoing is going to basically double just from the fact that it's going from a 1 year to 2 years.
Anything else that's one-time spending that now gets more appealing other than those two?
Well, I mentioned the cash for the bonding bill, but that was also at a time when the 1.2 billion followed by 2 billion looked like we were flush. And I think we're still healthy, but we're not. I don't think we have. In my view, we don't have a surplus to just throw around.
Governor, the Republican leaders say now is the time to enact middle-class tax cuts to boost the economy over time. Are you open to that?
Well, I'm proposing middle-class tax cuts, child care tax credit, and increasing the money for working families. So, if they're seriously focused on middle-income tax cuts, I'm on the same page with them. They use that rhetoric, but the actual beneficiaries of their actual proposals tend to be wealthier people and larger corporations. So if they're sincere about focusing on middle class, I'm right there with them. We'll have to see how much of the surplus we have and the one projected in the future that we can risk spending on reducing our future revenues, because again, we did that 1999, 2000. Big surpluses, big tax rebates, and boom, we were in deficits for the next decade. We're still dealing with the aftermath of that, and some people may not remember that. I wasn't president of state government during that time, but I watched the TV and read the papers and listened to the radio. I remember what was going on, so I'm not going to let us get put in that box again.
Governor, Senator Boggs said it would be more difficult to fund your pre-K initiative. How do you
Yes,
see that?
it's going to be more difficult, and we have to. I just got these numbers this morning, so I'm going to have to take some time after the water quality summit to look them over and talk early next week. I've set March 15th as the date for my supplemental, and certainly, I'm cognizant that these numbers are going to make it more difficult. And again, because pre-K, like the other spending I mentioned, would be 1 year in this biennium, and then goes up to 2 years the next biennium. So that's definitely something I'm going to have to take into account.
So is this good news or is this troubling news?
The concerning news. I think any forecast for surplus and a structural surplus, I think it shows again that our economy continues to grow a little more slowly. The national economy grows more slowly, but it just says that we've been sort of rising surpluses really since 2012. Is that when the last one you said the last four? So I've gotten used to it, and this is concerning. And it's a wake-up call for all of us in these positions in the legislature, and myself and my agency heads, and all of whom have a lot of the groups who are clamoring for additional money or additional tax relief. That the purse is not as full as it seemed 3 months ago.
Republicans pointed to some statistics in the report that showed that in at least some important economic areas, Minnesota isn't growing as fast as the rest of the country. Personal income was one of those areas. They said that was because of the tax and regulatory climate here in Minnesota.
Of course.
I'm guessing you disagree with them.
Of course.
What would you attribute?
Have you ever heard anything other than that I haven't for the last 40 years. Well, the growth in personal income, as Laura said to me this morning, when we already have a high per capita income, our percent increase is not going to be as high as other states that start from a much lower base. Same thing with job creation. You know, when we're down to 3.5% unemployment, and we have more vacancies than we have unemployment, people unemployed, you know, there's just not much more room to grow. Economists, when I was going to school, said 4% is full employment economy. So some of these, you know, figures don't lie, but others can figure, you know. And you can pick ones that make us look one way or the other. I go back to the ones I've seen over the last year where, you know, time after time, impartial, objective observers nationally rate us very highly. Number one for business, CNBC, and Forbes Business Magazine rated us 7th best or 8th best for business, and Gallup rated us number one for job creation. So, you know, they don't have an axe to grind, and they don't have a political or an ideological agenda as they're trying to continue to foist on Minnesota policymakers. So I don't discount the other factors. We should be looking at all of them. But these are organizations that have looked at a much broader range of factors to come to these conclusions and compared Minnesota to other states.
Governor, do you expect that in your supplemental budget proposal you'll have something significant in there for pre-K?
Well, early childhood, pre-K remains my top priority. And again, we'll have to look and see what's going to be possible given these numbers. But if not now, when? I mean, we still have a surplus of $900 million for this biennium and 1.2 the following biennium. If we're not going to expand pre-K now, I don't know when we will. Certainly won't be during my 2 terms, and thereafter, who's to say? But you look at the other states that are providing pre-K, in some cases universal pre-K, have much poorer per capita incomes and other financial resources than we do, but they found room in their budgets for it. So I think it's a matter of determination, saying what's the priority? Is the priority to eliminate the business tax, or to eliminate Social Security taxes for the wealthiest seniors in Minnesota, or is the priority to provide early childhood education for more kids who need it?
Governor, how about transportation? We've checked in with you repeatedly on the status of the gas tax. Is it dead, deader than dead? Where is it right now?
I don't think anything is dead. I was off the cuff before, and I mean, if the House is totally dead set, absolutely irrevocably against it, then I suppose it's on life support, certainly. But again, I challenge them to, I made my proposal, and I'll stand on it. I want to see theirs, and I want to see how theirs reflect these current realities. I mean, their $7 billion number is pure fiction over 10 years, and it comes from basically raiding the general fund. Sales tax on auto parts is $500 million per year biennium, right? Biennium, $500 million for the biennium. So right away you look at the next biennium and you say, can we take almost half of that and put it permanently into transportation spending? And what's that going to create in terms of the crunch that I'm determined we're going to avoid, which we got into last time around. So it's going to be a matter of trade-off and priorities, and they'll set theirs, I'll set mine, Senate will set theirs.
Does this forecast, though, make transportation harder to do? Senator Bach said all the spending's harder to do, particularly.
Yeah, all the spending's harder to do, and the notion that we have enough in this general fund, we can provide, give it all back, and then we can turn around and put $500 million biennium into the general fund, into the transportation, and I mean, there's just less of there to scoop out and throw into other buckets.
So what does today's report do to the chances of having a successful session?
Well, I think the chances of a successful session have less to do with this forecast than they do with the dynamics of a legislature that's entirely up for re-election. and a government that's, clearly divided. People, they said they wanted to divide the government, well, they got it. Want to divide the government in Washington, you get it. There may be perceived advantages in people's mind to that, but there are also some serious disadvantages, because I believe the Republicans' views are sincerely held. I don't agree with them, and they don't agree with mine, but our convictions are our own convictions. So when you get elected by the people, you come in here, you say, well, I've got a mandate. And, that was the problem we had in the last session. That's the problem we're gonna have in this session. And, this, I don't think makes it easier or harder in the sense of getting a final outcome. As Senator Bach said, yesterday, that depends on the willingness to accept things that we don't like, and others accept things that they don't like, and absent that willingness, really the forecast by the boards.
Anything else?
Senator Bach said this 1.4 bonding bill is unlikely to pass now. Can you just clarify what level of spending you're looking at now?
Well, how much more money do we have to, Margaret, how much more money do we have to put in to pay for 1.4 billion than was in the forecast? Or has that been incorporated into it now?
7 million additional in 16-17 and 61 in 18-19.
So there's a cost to it. 7 million this biennium, 61 the next, if additional expenditures. So again, what's the priority? The current budget assumes what, 8, 7?
The current forecast assumes we'll do 800 million.
800 million. I consider that to be inadequate. You look at what the university and MnSCU are asking for. You look at what we got to do for some of the things I would prefer we didn't have to do, like the St. Peter and Anoka. And somebody take a look at all those at $3 billion and tell me how 800 million is not going to leave out some really important projects that we need to do, and we need to move forward. And House Republicans talking about using GO bonds for transportation. So again, 1.4 billion is less than half of all the requests I received. 800 million is about less than 25% of all the requests I received.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Hey, thank you.